Hi guys, I'm Alexis and this is season 1, episode 1 of my new podcast talk show. It's called Pretty in Sports. So I kind of do this on Instagram and Twitter anyway. We are in week 3 of the NFL and I do this every week. I just make my predictions, so I don't want this video to be very long, but make sure you follow me and I'll leave the links down below. So let's get to some of my predictions for week 3 of the NFL season. Okay, so first off, we're just gonna talk about the easy games I think that I think are winnable by the teams that I picked. So we can go ahead and pick the Patriots versus the Jets. Of course, I feel like the Patriots will have no problems. They had no problems at the Dolphins. Of course, they have Antonio Brown. I am filming this on Tuesday, so I don't know what can happen at the end of the week with his all the accusations by Miss Brittany Taylor has, because she spoke with the NFL as of today, so I don't know if he's going to be able to play. I suspect that he will. The Patriots will be just fine. What I want to say is, I know Tom Brady, Antonio Brown, Josh Gordon, Edelman, Dorsett, all of them, the wide receivers and the quarterback, I know they get a lot of respect, or a lot of talked about conversations, but let's not get confused that the Patriots defense is absolutely astounding. I mean, if you sit there and you really think about it, you go back to the Super Bowl, they didn't even let the other team score a touchdown. I mean, they did a really good job. I mean, they let the Dolphins score nothing last week. The Steelers, they were only able to have a field goal. So going into week 3, they haven't let a team score a touchdown. So let's get off of that because it's spent way too long. So let's just go into the Dolphins versus the Cowboys. Of course, I picked the Cowboys. Dak is showing out. There's people saying that he can't throw a deep ball. Last week he threw a deep ball and they're looking just as good, and I think it's because Dak really wants to get paid, so he's going to do whatever he has to do. We have the Titans versus Jaguars. I honestly, I know Jalen, what is his name? I know Jalen wants to get out of the Jaguars, so I don't know that situation. He'll definitely be playing next week because they're not going to do anything that fast. Tennessee Titans, I'm going to pick for this one just because I think they always start out pretty good in the season, maybe have a loss or two. By week about 10 is when they start to fall apart. We have the Cincinnati versus Buffalo. I think Buffalo will pull out of there. I'm pretty sure they're undefeated right now. But they're also another team that always starts out high, and then as the time goes on, they lose some of that steam. You have the Lions and the Eagles. I think the Eagles will pull out of there. We have the Falcons and the Colts. I think the Colts, shout out to Jacoby Brissett. He was my quarterback at NC State, so go Wolfpack. We have the Raiders and the Vikings. I think the Raiders will go ahead and take that one. We have the Raiders and the Vikings. I think Raiders will get it. The Ravens and the Chiefs. That's going to be an interesting game. My gut tells me that I think the Chiefs are gonna win that game, but I'm gonna go big and I'm gonna go home. So I'm gonna pick the Ravens on that, even though I'm pretty sure the Chiefs will pull that off. Okay, so the next 2 games, the Broncos and the Packers. Let me say that that the Broncos, the start of the season is just really not going as planned. You can like the last 2 games, they played the Bears last week, and the first week they played who did they play? They played the Raiders. I knew they were gonna lose those 2 games, but I was kind of hoping that they would pull something out. And those are games that they're gonna look back at the end of the season and they're gonna say, hey, we should have won those games. Those were winnable games. They had some, like, both games, they just had like very, very small mistakes that cost them the game, especially last week. Especially, it came down to the wire. But they're playing the Packers, and the Packers are just playing so good right now. I know that's gonna be a tough loss, because for somebody that has that much talent on the Broncos, I know potentially being 0-3 is really, really heartbreaking. I think they'll bounce back getting towards the end of the season, but I'm gonna have to say the Packers. Okay, so then we have the Panthers and the Cardinals. If you know me, the Cardinals I love Larry Fitzgerald, who is a wide receiver. This is his 16th season, I think. He's a wide receiver that doesn't get a lot of shine. You don't see him a lot in the media, but he, to me, has one of the best hands in football. As far as the Panthers, I'm not sure if Cam's problem is physically or mentally, and I have a little bit of, I think it's just a little bit of both. I think he's at kind of that crossroads. Does he love football? Is it time to make that transition from a player? And I guess it's, I can only imagine playing a sport at a high level, and let's not be fake about it. Cam is a champion. He's always been a champion. High school, but definitely in college. That's who he is. He is a champion. He's never been that accurate. I think his pass percentage has never been over 60%. Even at the time he won the MVP a couple years back. He had a rotator cuff injury, and rotator cuff injuries, I don't know how the extent of it, but he just had one earlier this year. I just don't think his throwing arm, and he says something about a foot. So I think they know it's almost towards that time, because I can't see in the future. There's a lot left in the season. We can go into that later. You have the Giants and Tampa Bay. I think definitely Jameis Winston with the Tampa Bay will take that away. Oh yeah, and for the Panthers and the Cardinals, I'm gonna go ahead and pick the Cardinals. Okay, and you got the Saints and the Seahawks. Definitely pick the Seahawks on this one. Drew Brees is out with a thumb surgery for about 6 weeks. But if you know anything about football is different from basketball. You out 6 weeks, 6 months in basketball, who cares? But in football, 6 weeks is basically not an entire season, but that's the difference between a playoff team and you going home at the end of the year. You staying home at the end of the year. So, but the backup quarterback does have experience in that high level. However, I think the Seahawks are going to take that. You have the Texans and the Chargers. Chargers were my favorite at the beginning of the season. So I'm going to have to go with the Chargers, even though Texas is playing well. You have the Steelers versus the 49ers. Big Ben is out with the elbow injury for the rest of the season. To me, it's almost like he's out, he's retired. I don't know if he'll come back or not, but I think it depends on how this season is for the Steelers, because, you know, I think he's way past his prime. He is a Super Bowl champion. I will not ever take that away from him. But if I was the Steelers, but at this point, the Steelers don't really have, unless the backup comes in and just surprises the world, I can't say anything of, I can't go with them. So I'm gonna go with the 49ers, and I want to let the Steelers know. I also want to let the Steelers, the Saints, and the Jets and the Dolphins know that Colin Kaepernick has been working out 5 days a week at 5 o'clock in the morning. So let us get something. Okay, so on the last game on Sunday night, we have the Rams versus the Browns. I'm definitely going with the Rams. The Browns, to me, the Browns are so disappointing this year, and I knew they were, because I think Jarvis Landry, I think he is just an amazing person. If you watch him on I don't know personally, but if you watch him on the screen, you can really tell he's such a good guy. Baker Mayfield, you know, he's up and coming. We'll just have to see with that. And you have Odell Beckham, which, I mean, he's notorious for that one hand. But I want to ask a question. Without that one-handed catch in New York, without that crazy hair, without all of that partying, would we even know who Odell was? I mean, he wasn't winning in New York. I mean, he won last week, or he won yesterday, because I'm filming this on Tuesday, against the Jets. But I mean, I know college teams that could probably beat the Jets right now. So it is what it is. Okay, so then on Monday night headliner, we have the Bears versus the Redskins, and I'm gonna go with the Bears. I have a good feeling about the Bears. What did they do last week? They beat the Broncos barely, but there's no barely in sports. When you go out there, you go out there to win, and that's what you do. The Redskins, you know, they lost to the Cowboys last week, and they also lost to the Eagles the week before, so they're going into this 0-2. So that was my week's predictions for week 3 of the NFL season. If you like more, like, comment, and subscribe to this new podcast. This is season 1, episode 1 of the Pretty in Sports podcast, and I'll let you guys know whenever iTunes and Spotify accept my request, so I'll be able to put my podcast on there as well as on YouTube. So this is